The federal government yesterday directed the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA, to launch a thorough investigation into the tanker explosion that claimed lives of many in Jigawa State. The Minister of Petroleum Resources, Senator Heineken Lupobiri, gave the directive following the tragic incident in Majia Town, Taura local government area of Jigawa State. Also yesterday, President Bola Tinubu said those found responsible for breaches of safety standards would be held accountable, reaffirming the government's unwavering commitment to ensuring such incidents do not recur. The victims of a tanker explosion in Jigawa State have been given a mass burial close to the scene of the blast. More than 140 people have now been confirmed dead, with 89 others in hospital for treatment. Arise correspondent Ayo Adenaye reports.
It is a mournful situation in Majia Town, Taura local government area of Jigawa State. Most homes in the community have lost at least one or two loved ones from the unfortunate petrol tanker explosion that left over 100 people dead. Sympathizers have continued to visit the families of the victims.
My late son has been very good to me. He always gives me anything I request for. It is a great loss to us, but we take comfort in God. The tanker explosion led to the death of our children, family members, and friends. We take it as something that has already been destined by God.
Spokesperson of the community speaks to Arise News on the unfortunate incident, blamed largely on the people who went to scoop petrol after the tanker fell off.
What really happened is that around 11 p.m. on Tuesday, the petrol tanker was coming from Kano, and suddenly the tanker fell down and the petrol started pouring out. When the people saw this, they rushed there and started fetching the petrol. We tried our best to stop them, but they ignored our plea. It was in this process that the blast occurred, leaving many people dead.
Right behind me here is what remains of the petrol tanker that fell off at Majia in Taura local government area of Jigawa State. This incident happened earlier this morning, and from what we have gathered, even from the police, about 94 persons have been confirmed dead, with over 50 people hospitalized and placed in various hospitals in Ringim, in Gumel, and some are even taken down to Kano State. And from the people of the community also confirmed to us, based on the figures they also gave to us, they told us about 100 people have been confirmed dead in this particular incident that happened here. The chairman of the local government, Shuaibu Hambali, said about 147 persons died from the incident.
We have the loss of 147 people right now. We have almost 89 in the hospital. They are hospitalized. Right now, I'm receiving a call that 3 of them died. We buried almost 147 people right now.
A lot of sensitization has been going on in Nigeria that people should avoid rushing into an accident vehicle like that. A big a tanker that is carrying petrol to be scooping oil. So there is a lot of sensitization about that, but people refuse to heed to advice.
Some survivors of the unfortunate incident are currently receiving treatment at various hospitals in the state, while those with critical conditions have been referred to the Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital in Kano State.
Actually, around 3 a.m., 3:30 a.m. today, early morning, they brought about 16 victims. Then I think among the 16, almost 12 of them were critical in condition, because some they even start developing acute kidney injury, because some they are not passing stool. One, the blood, the urine was bloody like Coca-Cola in shape. So then later in the early morning, they brought about 13, now about 3, which altogether making 19. Then among these 19, I think we refer 16 to Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital.
The state government has already assured all the survivors of the explosion of adequate care. Ayo Adinaye, Arise News, Jigawa.
Yesterday, we took this as breaking story, and now we have updates on that very sad, tragic story. Still counting, 147 lives perished. Bufa, your take on this story?
I mean, what else is there to say? Ayo Adenayi did a very extensive report on it. Now we know what happened. People were skipping fuel. And I think we've constantly said it, that please, when you see any tanker laden and it's fallen, please do not go scoop fuel there. I think we need to do more as regards driving sensitization. I am not going to be part of those that will say, oh, because the economy is bad, people had to make brisk business. No, they're dead now. Because I have a real experience of this. When JC happened, there are many lives that have never recovered from the JC incident. About 2 years ago, I did a documentary on the rise for that JC incident.
Okay.
I think about 2 years ago, maybe over 20 years. There were about 2 to 3 or 4 years ago, maybe over 20 years, that JC incident happened. And the truth, as we said, people have not recovered from it. Really? So what are we going to be able to do for these people? Yeah, there are mass graves, which is another very sad one, which is a blight on our country. But the NMDPRA has said they're going to investigate. Let's see where the investigations come from. And please, we need to do better. Some part of the solutions will be, can we have a more effective way of transporting our products? Can we have rail? Can we have pipelines? Can we look at other alternatives? You know, just to be able to forestall this, but it's a very sad one.
Yeah, very sad. Dr. Batim.
Okay. Today is what date? October 17, 2024. Exactly today, on October 17, 1998, JC oil tanker tragedy happened. In other words, since JC happened on October 17, 1998, we have had perennial cases of oil tanker explosions tragedies in Nigeria. Why is it perennial? Really? You have heard of it in Lagos, in other states of the Federation. The main element is that when these tankers, when they capsize, when they collapse, when they derail, whatever adjective may be relevant, the Nigerian people will go and they will scoop fuel. They know that written clearly on the tanker is the message that this is inflammable material. But because of the weaponization of poverty, because of poverty in Nigeria, Nigerians willingly submit themselves to suicide. And this is what continues to happen in this country 22 years after. It is a demonstration, an affirmation of how the Nigerian government has continually, perennially failed the Nigerian people. So that people will see tragedy and they will embrace it. This is not to say, however, that this commentator is endorsing the fact that part of the narrative has been that there has been a tendency in Nigeria to blame the victim. These people who are victims, they act out of desperation. They are looking for a way out of the poverty trap. But I think the caveat to that is that our people also need to be continually educated. That poverty, deprivation, despair does not mean that you willingly endanger your own life. Number 3, we have been told that everybody, from the First Lady to the Vice President to the Minister of Petroleum Oil, they've all said, oh, we sympathize with the people in Taura local government, which is where the incident occurred. Well, sympathy is not enough. Now they say they will conduct an investigation, verifying. NEMA is saying we will do investigation. We will look at what happened. Look, the root cause is the triumphalism of poverty in Nigeria, the deprivation of the people, the failure of governance for up to 22 years, so that people will see danger and they will go and embrace it. Anybody should know if you go and scoop fuel, even if two metal objects, if they just crack each other, there could be fire. And this is what happened. And now we have been told this morning, 105 persons died in the explosion that occurred. 55 persons were rushed to the hospital. Even that figure, in another 2 days' time, we'll be told that more people died, because statistics in Nigeria is not something that you can rely upon.
Yeah, this is very sad, and our condolences to the people of Jigawa State and the governor of Jigawa State, who himself has expressed his sadness at this terrible loss over 140 people have died. And we hear that over 50 people are currently in hospital with varying degrees of burns and just, of being affected by this explosion. But some things we've talked about a number of times, and I'm glad that an investigation has been instituted. The first is the state of the trucks that convey petrol products from city to city on our roads. We see them. Some of them are not worthy to be on our roads. That's the truth. And when you're carrying such sensitive, flammable material, you want to expect that the highest standards of safety has been ensured. Unfortunately, this isn't the case. And what usually happens is when there's maybe a truck has fallen down, an explosion like this, or lives have been lost, they will begin to talk about, oh, let us investigate, let us investigate. We react a lot, rather than preventing these unfortunate incidents from happening. Yes, it presents an opportunity for the people to then want to make a buck or two or make some money by scooping fuel. And we've raised awareness a number of times that this is suicide. Do not be tempted. The risks are just so high. It is not worth it. So perhaps more community awareness around this. But let the people who are responsible for movement or transportation of fuel produce be also held accountable so that their drivers are well trained, they are not overspeeding on our roads, and that their vehicles are in good condition. And of course, consider safer forms of transportation of our fuel. We have the pipeline, like you talked about. We have rail. And so these are some of the things that the government should do, not just an investigation, but actually a solution so we do not see these things happening frequently as it has happened in recent times. Let's move on to our next story. On day 3 of the 30th Nigerian Economic Summit, all eyes were on Jamie Dimon, the chairman and CEO of JP Morgan Chase, as he announced plans to expand the bank's presence in Africa. In a fireside chat, Dimon shared insights into the vital role financial stability plays in economic growth, particularly in emerging markets like Nigeria. Arise News correspondent Nkechi Nana reports.
Day 3 of the 30th Nigerian Economic Summit closed with a highly anticipated fireside chat featuring Jamie Dimon, chairman and CEO of JP Morgan Chase, the world's largest bank by market capitalization. Damon revealed plans to expand JP Morgan's operations into Kenya and Ivory Coast this year, marking a significant step in broadening the bank's African footprint.
We're opening our first branch in Kenya, which we're really happy to do as part of an expansion into Africa, which I think is very important. So we just had our earnings last week, and I did mention that the situation is kind of treacherous. If you look at history of the world, it's probably the most treacherous since World War II. You have a major land war with 1 million casualties in Europe, major armies battling each other. You have terrorism in the Middle East and terrorism around the world.
He emphasized the critical role a stable financial system plays in driving economic growth, especially in emerging markets like Nigeria.
It's really important to have a healthy financial system. I mean, a financial system is kind of the flywheel for the health of an economy. It allocates capital, it raises money, it gives entrepreneurs money to do things. So wherever I go around the world, where you have a healthy financial system, you usually have a healthy.
Drawing from decades of experience at the helm of a global financial powerhouse, Damon stressed that trust and stability are the foundations of a thriving economy.
Being around the world gives us huge knowledge. And that knowledge that we have around Nigeria, so on the way over here, I was reading our research. That research, we educate the world about Nigeria. We educate central banks about Nigeria. We help educate the IMF about Nigeria. Being here is a very important thing. And what we want to do is be open in more countries in Europe and in Africa, so that over time the next generation has a footprint here. And when you're here, you actually have much more local knowledge. So you're in Lagos, you know much more about what's going on in Nigeria than I could know sitting in New York City. And we're quite optimistic about the future of Africa.
In his closing remarks, the NESG chairman, Olaniyi Yusuf, reiterated the value of collaboration in shaping Nigeria's economic future.
We need all hands on deck. We need both the private sector and the public sector. We need the federal and the state and the local governments. We need the development partners. We just need all hands on deck to have a better coordination, to have focus, and to allocate our time, our talent, and our resources. And hopefully, if we do it in a coordinated manner, we can push and make a big difference.
After 3 days of robust discussions, The focus now shifts on how Nigeria's government will act on these recommendations leading up to the next NESG summit. Nkechi Nana, Arise News.
Meanwhile, on the sidelines of the 30th Nigerian Economic Summit, Arise News correspondent Nkechi Nana caught up with Jamie Dimon, chairman and CEO of JP Morgan Chase. She began by asking for his impressions since being in Nigeria and the key insights he's gained from this summit. Here's what he had to say.
Thrilled to be here and to hang out with my management team, Dapo, and the people who run Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa for us. And it's amazing what you always learn when you go on the road. And this morning I was at the Economic Summit. I had a lunch with FinTech. I met with the central bank governor and Minister of Finance tonight at the U.S. Ambassador's house with some of the bigger companies and bigger banks. Yes. And here's what I learned. They've made some very tough decisions, which is hard, but they will create growth in the future. Stable, more stability, more growth. Very smart at what they've done. Very smart to get the oil company with a kind of professional board, and I hope you take it public, so it's got real transparency and real standards. The FinTech lunch, you have a lot of talent here. And that talent's being hired and going to other parts of the world, but they built several unicorns here, in both healthcare and in FinTech. And so I'm walking away thinking, this 220 million people, it's going to grow rapidly, it's young, it's got schools and educations, and we're quite optimistic. And I've asked the team to make sure we're putting together a plan that fits the future of Nigeria. We've been here for 60 years, we're proud to be here. We want to earn our trust and respect by the Nigerian people every day, and you'll be seeing more of us.
That sounds optimistic, seeing more of them. Rufai, thank you so much, Nkechi, for that exclusive, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. But some things he said, I think he said some things that are quite obvious, and we've talked about it a number of times. What your take on this?
Truth is, like you said, we've got the talent, we've got the grit, we've got the tenacity. Many things he posited that I don't totally agree with is the times of reforms. That says he's going to bring stable growth and everything. Because for you to get to a part of stable growth, the economy has to do well. So you need to think of the immediate and be able to create stopgaps. So revolutionary economic ideas that talks about, classical economics, the regulation and all of that, those things don't entirely trickle down. They don't bring about trickle-down development. In the American sector, when you look at it, when in the 80s, when Reagan deregulated the oil sector big time, it pushed up poverty, pushed up child poverty. So those are the things we are saying. Because you must also have a system apart from the investment angle, that caters for the investment angle, that caters for those beneath the rung of the ladder, those that can afford any meal. Look at states now. States are increasing minimum wage and all that. Kudos to Governor Sanwo-Olu, I should say, in Lagos, topping it up to 85,000. But when you look at it, The Guardian also did a report, says a family to be able to afford a meal 30 days is going to cost 150,000. That's just one square meal. So you can see that, and all of this is because of the cost of living. The purchasing power, capacity of the Naira is dropping definitely because of the devaluation of the Naira. So all of these economic dynamics has affected the poorest of the poor. So we need to look at those reforms again. Please, we'll dash our foot against the stone.
Okay, JP Morgan Chase has been doing business in Nigeria since 1960. They opened an office for a legal representative in Nigeria in 1982. I think Jamie Dimon's presence in Nigeria is enough evidence to prove that the international investing community is still interested in Nigeria and wants to do business with Nigeria. Jamie Dimon, before attending this event, had said that JP Morgan Chase is looking at, increasing its footprint, investment footprint in Africa. And they are looking at other countries, including Ivory Coast. So I think in a sense, it shows that we're not yet an isolated economy. The international community is interested in us. However, there are specific, very basic points that Jamie Dimon made that I think should be emphasized. He made a point that, look, Nigeria needs to pay attention to consistency of policy, consistency of laws, consistency of regulations, and that it is this consistency at the policy level that will inspire confidence of the international investment community in Nigeria, and that will drive, foreign direct investment, FDI, as they called it. he made a point that capital goes where it is taken care of. And the mystery of capital, there's a famous book by that title, The Mystery of Capital. You know, so De Soto has already told us about the mystery of capital, and he is saying the mystery is that if you have an enabling environment for investment, people will come to you. Number two, for us to just focus on the specific issues, I think Mr. Jamie Dimon also talked about good governance, good administration, good leadership. These are issues that we talk about all the time. So it's good that we have an investor coming to tell us that you need good leadership in your country. You need good administration. And you need a consistency of laws, policies, and regulations, not the kind of flip-flop that we witness both at the national level and at the subnational level. For me, those are the important things he contributed to the conversation at the 30th NESG.
Very important things. He's talked about also potentials and opportunities, and I think it's important to make that really clear, that despite everything, you know, the policy flip-flops that have been identified, in some regulations that inhibit business growth in Nigeria, investors are still looking to come here and are still willing to do business in Nigeria. So the ball is in the court of the government. Nigeria is an attractive investment destination. Just fix the things that have been identified as being a deterrent to investors bringing their money in here. Number one is, we've talked about this often, the ease of doing business. I know that the Secretariat is working really hard, but there are multiple stakeholders who are involved to ensure that truly, you know, business is easy for people to do in Nigeria. We look at the multiple taxation rates. We look at some of the bottlenecks and bureaucracy that can be present when it comes to permit approvals. We look at the corruption in some agencies, unfortunately, whereby you have to bribe to get certain things, get certain inroads. You have to put in money for certain people to be able to pass through your permit. So these are some of the challenges that have been identified a number of times. Business Day already outlined the fact that in the last few months, years, 10 multinationals have left the shores of Nigeria, citing a difficult environment to do business. So these are some of the quick wins if we want to ensure that the money that we're looking for, capital, in terms of FDI, comes in. The other part, of course, is regulations. Regulations that actually support businesses rather than inhibit businesses. I've been talking about taxes a lot of times, particularly the work that Mr. Taiwo Oyedele is doing with the Joint Tax Committee and the recommendations. Part of this is to ensure that they reduce the bottlenecks in that area to make it more attractive for businesses, small, medium-scale businesses, and even the bigger businesses to come to Nigeria to do business. I'm glad that he talked about a stable financial system and leveraging AI in banking to improve it. To be honest, when it comes to technology, Nigeria does quite well in the banking system, but I feel a lot more can be done. But, you know, so many things to pick up from there. The NESG is still ongoing, and just some very salient points out of.
We are staying with the fuel tanker disaster that claimed more than 100 lives in Jigawa State on Tuesday. The medical teams at the Federal Medical Center in Nguru and Federal Medical Center Kudu say they are working around the clock to stabilize the affected persons in their facilities. The Deputy Head of Clinical Services at FMC Nguru, Dr. Akinwumi Ademola, while speaking to TVC News reporter, revealed that the health conditions of some victims have continued to deteriorate, with over 70% of their bodies severely burned, and more than 70 victims are currently receiving intensive care at the facility. He explains that despite the challenges, medical teams remain committed to reviving the victims, and that the hospital has mobilized additional resources to cope with the influx of patients. Governor Umar Namadi, who visited, said the state government will deploy extra staff and equipment to ensure each patient receives adequate attention. In the meantime, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, has sympathized with Jigawa state government and families of victims over the incident that occurred at Taura local government area. The IGP, in a statement by the force spokesman, Olumoyiwa Adejobi, commends the effort of the police personnel and other emergency responders for their swift action in extinguishing the fire, evacuating the victims, and ensuring normalcy is swiftly restored in the area. While praying for the souls of the departed ones, the IGP reassures the general public of robust sensitization programs on the hazardous effects of oil scooping and other similar activities to avoid recurrence of such incident. TVC News senior reporter Ibrahim Issa, who has been monitoring the development, joins me now on the news. Ibrahim, bring us up to speed on the condition of victims of this tanker explosion.
Yes.
Well, I must say currently I am at Kano Teaching Hospital, AKTH, right here in Kano, and behind me is Malad Tambata Bones Ward, where about 16 patients brought from Saura are currently receiving medical care. We earlier spoke with the CMD of this hospital, and he told us that about 32 of those victims are currently admitted in this hospital and are currently responding to treatment. And a few moments ago, we were at the ward, and we had the opportunity to speak to about 2 or 3 of them, and they narrated their audio, but of course called on the government and philanthropists to wade in and provide more resources for medical care. Initially, the American Hospital told us that they have footed the bills of those 32 patients, which will last for about 48 hours, according to the rules, after which the government or philanthropists or whoever is interested to wade in and provide more resources for their quick recovery. We learned that 15 burns patient is very expensive, and it takes about 3 months minimum and at least a year in some cases for one to recover fully. So these patients are calling on the government to immediately wade in and provide the necessary support for them to recover fully. But as we speak, they are currently responding to treatment.
All right. And indeed, since the incident, the death toll has actually been rising. But what have we gathered about, from people around that vicinity on their reaction to that and their level of consciousness and self-awareness to preventing recurrence of an incident of this nature?
Yes, we spoke to some of them. You can see some of them are currently seated close to the ward where the patients are currently admitted. And they told us that authorities should, as a matter of urgency, ensure that whenever such incidences occur, presence of security operatives is very important to make sure that people don't go closer to any of, to avoid future occurrences. And there have been commendations from these families of the victims as regards the effort of the government to move these victims from different locations to different medical facilities to receive treatment. So these families say that the security operatives should as well help in ensuring that no one goes near such incidents to avoid the number of those that are affected. I learned that about 153 lost their lives, and we learned that those 32 that are currently admitted at this AKTH facility are all alive, and none has lost his life as they are currently responding to this.
All right, Ibrahim, we thank you very much for this update, and we look forward to what the reaction of government would be to the call by these victims to be supported, because with 70% of their bodies severely burned, it may look like a long road to full recovery. Thank you, Ibrahim Issa, for the update.